Hear ye, hear ye.
Hear ye, hear. Okay, folks, I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Peachtree NORML. I'd like to welcome everybody for showing up, and we're going to have a limited agenda today. Laura's going to be talking about some stuff she's doing with our internet site and improving it. And we're also going to have Stephen George is going to do a little bit of a talk, and I just wanted to welcome everybody, and we'll go ahead and start the meeting.
Thanks everybody for making it out. We'll keep it quick this evening. I am working on the website, working on migrating it off. It had been on somebody's personal server and hadn't been looked after very well for about a decade, so we're pulling all of that content and making sure that that finds a new home that has some continuity, that it doesn't spontaneously go down would be really helpful. I also wanted to mention the legislation that we know about so far. We went over HB 12 last month at the meeting. That is raising the criminal penalties from 1 ounce to 2 ounces at several places in the law, and removing the fingerprinting requirement for cannabis-related offenses. So that would be helpful to a number of people who are arrested in any given year, who at least at the end of that time served could not have a criminal record going forward. It does not help anybody who has more than 2 ounces on them. Hope your dealer shorts you just a little, right? Anybody who has more than 2 ounces doesn't help them at all, and it does max out at a $300 fine. If you cannot pay that $300 fine, it reverts back to a criminal penalty. So it's legal if you're wealthy enough, which is not what we're willing to settle for. HR 13, that's a resolution, so it has no practical impact. It is members of our assembly telling the National Congress, we really hope you do something about that. That's incredibly frustrating. If only you were in an elected position where you could do something instead of just asking someone else, but that's what HR 13 is. Better than not? I don't know. HB 308. I need to speak to a legislative aide this week because of the way it's worded. I'm not entirely certain. It is authorizing county-level prosecution of misdemeanor possession under an ounce, which is currently suspended in a lot of places, but this would allow a different level of magistrate to make recommendations. It does set a max fine of $1,000. The flip side of that is 12 months in jail. So it's good and bad depending on how it's interpreted, and like HB 12, it separates out marijuana and controlled substances, which leads us to believe that if it's federally rescheduled, that law would remain. It would not be overturned. We have one bill moving in the Senate, SB 77. It's the twin bill to HB 12 with a few minor differences, but it is moving to all cannabis possession being misdemeanor in the state, no probation and no drug testing. So there would still be fingerprinting and a criminal record to follow, but it turns out what trips a lot of people up is that period of probation, and either they fail a drug test or they miss an appointment and then they end up back in the criminal system. So that is an improvement. That's SB 77. Any questions about what's going on? Oh, you can buy things on the Peachtree NORML store, peachtreenorml.org/merch.
Thanks to Laura, she organized all this stuff and set us up with our manufacturer and all the great logos and stuff.
Yep.
Thanks,
You
Laura.
can now have things shipped to you directly. We never have to touch them. It's delightful. It is a black box of merch that just goes out into the world. And then we're starting to get I think it's 2 now, emails back with people in their Peachtree NORML gear taking photographs and then sending them back to us. So that is the beginning of a campaign we hope can actually work outside the state as well and bring some revenue to the organization that we will later need when we push the No Plea campaign. We will need to be able to pay some lawyers to help us with that. This is one of the ways we're raising funds.
Do you have any news from National on the proposed legislation that's going to be put up by Schumer and Cory Booker? And
no one seems to know anything except that
I keep reaching out and I get no information.
No one's expecting much. It's good that the signaling is happening. It's signaling that wouldn't have happened 3 years ago. It is signaling.
I
And
can
very
hear
little.
scuttlebutt that it's gonna be, instead of descheduling, it's gonna be rescheduling to Schedule
Schedule
2, which really makes no difference. It just means you're gonna be going to jail for 50 years for a Schedule 2 instead of a Schedule 1.
Right. The acknowledgement of some medicinal benefit is actually useful, so better Schedule 2 than no movement at all, but I do think it has possibility of pulling the energy out of the movement. Schedule 2 is as far as the president has said he's willing to go. That would help some people, but not very many. Other questions? I'm going to hand it over to Stephen George, who's going to tell us about a program that he's working with here in Georgia. We can help move Peachtree NORML's goals forward and help out some people who are really in need of our help in the process.
Okay, everyone, I want to introduce my lovely assistant, Miss Anna White. Mrs. Cindy George.
All right now.
When I give you the word, you'll hit the little button. Okay, hello everyone, Stephen George. I am the Community COVID-19 Crisis Counselor for Region 1, which is a 33-county region, basically consisting of the northern third of Georgia, starting in Cobb County and going north. The Georgia Recovery Project is a FEMA crisis counseling program that is funded through an interagency agreement between FEMA and the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA. The award was $1.7 million. Okay, again, it is FEMA funded, SAMHSA informed crisis counseling program and provides supplemental mental health funding in the wake of a disaster. The program provides clinical, practical, and emotional support to people who have been adversely affected by COVID-19. You don't have to have contracted COVID-19 to seek these services. Okay? Basically, it is a federal disaster. COVID-19 has been a federal disaster. The crisis counseling program is part of a FEMA, basically a canned program. And anytime there's a national disaster declared, whatever area that disaster is at, this crisis counseling program is part of the funds that come in and is addressed specifically for mental health. Okay, we do this through psychoeducation on stress management and referrals for basic needs, and a higher level of behavioral health care if it is warranted. The DBHDD launched the COVID-19 Emotional Support Line on April 6, 2020 at the request of DBHDD Commissioner Judy Fitzgerald. Okay, in each region, the DBHDD divides the state up into 6 different regions.
What is the DBHDD?
Okay, that's the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. That acronym has recently changed. It used to be the GDBHDD. The Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. Okay? But the DBHDD, and basically the DBHDD is responsible for the mental health services for people who are either uninsured or underinsured in the state. And those services are, for the most part, directed through the local community service boards. Okay. Each of the regions for the Georgia Recovery Project has a emotional support line. First of all, we have 6 counselors on the emotional support line. For each region, we have a crisis counselor, at least 1 crisis counselor. Some regions have 3 crisis counselors. Region 1 is supposed to have 2 crisis counselors, but I'm doing double duty right now. And then there's a liaison. We also have a media coordinator. Okay, if you look at the graphic there, you'll see the 6 regions for the county. For the state. Okay, some of our key concepts is that we are a strengths-based program, anonymous, we are outreach-oriented, culturally aware, we're conducted in non-traditional settings. When's the last time you saw a crisis counselor do a house call, much less come to a bar, okay, or a restaurant? It's designed for strengths, to strengthen existing community support systems, and it's based on an assumption of natural resilience and competence. The program funds from the COVID-19 Emotional Support Line, which is 866-399-8938. 866-399-8938. If I say it twice, it will be on the test. There are 8 crisis counselors working on the support line. They take calls and do outreach when they're not busy with a call. The emotional support line is in operation from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. If someone calls the line between 11 p.m. and 8 a.m., they will automatically be transferred to the Georgia Peer-to-Peer Warm Line. The Georgia Peer-to-Peer Warm Line is operated by the Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network. That number is 888-949-1414, 888-945-1414. It provides Georgians the opportunity to speak to a certified peer specialist over the phone 24 hours a day. A certified peer specialist is a person with lived experience recovering from behavioral health concerns who has received special training to be able to listen with empathy and who can provide assistance and resources to others. But what is resilience? Resilience is the ability to recover from or adjust easily to misfortune or change. That's a very good textbook definition. I explain to people that being resilient means being able to bounce back from adversity. Okay, again, we have traditional treatment versus crisis counseling. A traditional treatment is office-based. It may involve a diagnosis. It may focus on longer-term issues. It validates experiences associated with distress, and it keeps records. Okay, we keep no records. Something everyone should know that now, with a recent policy change, your therapist's case notes are also available to you as a patient. Previously, they were not necessarily requestable. Now, case notes are requested, which is why therapists and clinicians for years have taken very limited notes, and this is why. Okay, our range of crisis counseling services include hospitals, traditional partners, schools, nonprofits, here, Peachtree NORML, nonprofits. Okay, now, in addition, the Certified Peer Specialist, the program, also funds regional outreach through DBHDD's 6 regional offices. In regions 1, 2, 5, and 6, we have 1 team leader. Okay, I've already been through that. Okay, let's go one more. Okay, again, our regional crisis counseling teams, of which I am the crisis counseling team, basically. We provide public education through in-person trainings and webinars on stress management, virtual group counseling. I can do individual counseling, group counseling. I can also do individual assessments as well as group assessments, make referrals, and do emergency referrals as well. I can provide written material on stress management, and I also can do individual crisis counseling. Again, something I would like everyone to think about is right now I'm pushing the emotional support line in GCAP. I have emotional support line literature in Georgia Crisis Access cards here available if the group should decide to do a service project, I have all the literature you would need to be able to do that. Okay, here's the Georgia COVID-19 Emotional Support Line. Again, that number is 866-399-8938. Okay, the Georgia Crisis Access Line. That's GCAL, that's 1-800-715-4225. 1-800-715-4225. Consider this number 911 for mental health.
Do those programs come with money?
Do they come with money?
Yeah, if like Peachtree NORML got involved in one of those programs you're talking about, does that come with a grant?
That's a good question. That I couldn't tell you. That's something that we'd have to look at. I do have some grant opportunities that is Peachtree NORML still an Atlanta address? Is business address?
It's actually Dahlonega.
Dahlonega? Okay, but you serve the state, right? Okay, the hospital authorities have grants that you can do one-day events. I know that there is at least one hospital authority who has expressed an interest in becoming involved in the CBD and the medical marijuana issue. This hospital authority I'm talking about does issue one-day grants as well as grants for continuing programs. I actually have written a successful grant for this hospital authority. If you want to talk to me later, I can, tie you into that revenue fund. But again, something else you can think about. Become VOCA eligible, Victims of Crime Act. If there's 5% funding eligibility, nonprofits who have a social service, a social welfare function, can apply for Victims of Crime funding. Basically, someone in the organization either has to be a clinician, a social worker, an advocate, or go through the U.S. Justice's Office of Victims Advocacy, Victims Advocate Program, get 40 hours of training online, totally free. Then with that, there's a few, some forms you have to fill out through the Georgia State Attorney General's Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. And then once you become 5% funding eligible, now, say someone is arrested for their marijuana, okay? This is hypothetical. It could be a DUI, maybe it's shoplifting. When you start looking at all those surcharges, they add up. They're taking a DUI, I think they do the brain injury trust fund, it's like mandated as part of one of the surcharges. In addition to the surcharges, there'll be a VOCA surcharge, 5% funding surcharge. Those funds goes directly to the county, to the jurisdiction that judicial district serves, and the Board of Commissioners vote to see where that money goes. But once you become a 5% funding eligible, then you can apply for those funds. They're very competitive, but the fact that you're eligible for funding is going to help you in the long run. I mean, it takes you to another level, and I can explain how to do that. Also, you've got the Georgia Justice Project. They're giving trainings on how to do pardons, and one expungements, and I believe it's what, 288 will let you have 2 misdemeanors expunged, and I believe there's misdemeanors that you actually have convictions on after a certain amount of time that has lapsed. We've got the state of suit. Any veteran, regardless of time in service or when they ETS, can apply to get a free suit. This is actually my free suit. I mean, I'm just saying this, they're not handing out garbage. People who have a history of incarceration or being in the mental health hospital system in the state of Georgia can get funding through the Georgia Department of Community Affairs, as well as there's it's called HUD 811. nonprofits as well as political jurisdictions can apply for funding where they can either buy homes, homes, rent an entire apartment building, buy an apartment building, or buy units in an apartment complex. And then people who have a history of not being able to be placed, and they have histories of incarceration in the mental health system, your nonprofit can get funding to help fill in that gap. So there's lots of funds out there, and I would encourage, again, I've been trying to encourage the organization for a while to become more active, to show people that, you know, if you're stigmatizing us or if you're stereotyping people, maybe you should think twice, because there's a lot of different people. I'm actually I have a state of Georgia low THC card myself. I took care of my grandma who had one. I've seen the power of it. Now, having said that, do we have any questions about what the what the Georgia Recovery Project can do for you? I do want to mention this. I actually was in a training today, a naloxone training, and I was shocked. Some of you might be shocked too. The presenter was very clear in that apparently there's enough laced marijuana going around that people are overdosing, and they are now including that in the naloxone trainings. I don't know. I've never heard of it. But,
I've never heard of anyone overdosing.
well, I'm just sharing that with you. And with that, I would say that is probably the end of this portion of the program. If y'all want me to do a stress reduction shop, I can do that, or we can go to another portion of your program. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have literature and decal cards. I mean, in my Jeep. I'd like to drop them off, and you guys can start distributing at some point in time if that is something you'd like to move forward with.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, just. Great, I'd like to thank everyone for coming and thank everyone for watching. We really appreciate your attendance. Make sure you visit our Facebook page and website, and consider buying and modeling some of our I Am Normal gear. We've got big plans for a marketing promotional campaign in the future to hopefully end prohibition, not just in Georgia, but in the entire United States. Again, thank everybody for coming. If you have any questions, now's the time. If not, the meeting's adjourned.
Great. Thank you.